Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today we're painting a holiday themed Christmas car with a Christmas tree on top. You just need one brush, a round brush that holds a nice fine point will work great. I'm using my silver black velvet size 8 round brush. I have a mechanical pencil, a kneaded eraser, a water jar, and a rag for blotting. For my paper today I'm using an Arch watercolor journal. This is cold pressed paper. You just need a nice toothy 100% cotton paper for best results, so any brand will work. For this painting, I'm only using 4 colors: Daniel Smith Hansa Yellow Light, Ultramarine Blue, Indigo, and Holbein Scarlet Lake. You can use any bright Christmas red. Payne's Gray is an okay substitute for indigo, and ultramarine you can get in any brand, and you just need a cool yellow. Lemon yellow would also be a good substitute. We'll begin with the sketch. Of course, a VW buggy creates a really nice curved shape from front bumper to rear bumper. So I'm going to just start with that curved shape. I want to just get the placement and size exactly how I want them, something like that. And then the top of the car comes about 1/3 of the way from the front, and it also follows that same curvilinear design as the middle of the car. So I've just got 2 simple curves here to start out, and then I'm going to locate where I want to put my front tire, right about there. And approximating where the windows are going to go here and here. Very, very loose, rough sketch right now. Not committing to anything just yet. I do want this curved panel that comes over the tire to be really close to that rear window. That's an important comparison point, a placement that will matter if you want it to look like a VW buggy. So just very roughly placing my tires, and I've made that one a little larger than this one, so I should probably enlarge this one as well. So already we're starting to get the effect, the look of a VW. Very, very loose and expressive at this point. Once you've got your size and placement, you can begin to tighten up your sketch. So I'll begin with the front bumper. No real details just yet. Just a kind of squared off shape for that. That goes close to the tire. And my reference image is really not, I'm actually using multiple photos and even some paintings for my reference. So I'm going to put the finished painting up here for you to refer to instead of a reference image, just because it is such a hybrid. There isn't an actual photo of this. So you can just go ahead and look at that for reference as you're working, if you're painting right along with me in real time. All right, so you can see my marks are becoming a little darker, more committal, and I'm going to draw that nice curve for the top of the car, which connects to the front windshield, comes up like this, and we see the rear window coming down. You want to make sure that the 2 tires are parallel and on this imaginary road side. So you can even make a little line right there to make sure that the 2 tires are touching at the same point, and you don't want it to look like it's just rolling up or down a hill necessarily. So I'm placing these marks with more commitment. And the undercarriage right here, 2 parallel lines for that. And then we've got the door frame. Check the distance between the tire and the door frame. There's all kinds of little measurements you want to make and comparisons to see if you're right in your sketch. The opposite door frame comes up right there. And follows the curve of the car itself, like that. So inside the front window, we also have a separate little panel, a vertical line right about there. So of course, don't worry about making your sketch perfect. It does not have to be perfect. In fact, the more loose and painterly it is, the better. I find I probably spend a little bit too much time fixating on details. I don't know if you have the same issue, but sometimes looser and less perfect looks better in a painting. So this little line right here is important because that's going to be a shiny spot. I want it to stand out as a bright highlight on the car. And I'm actually just going to change the shape of the front just slightly. Yeah, that's a little better. All right, so then I begin to tighten up these details in the back. Again, this panel surrounding the tires is such a hallmark of this particular vehicle, so try and capture that shape as best you can. It's really a nice curvilinear shape, and then we have the light right here, license plate, a panel for the rear window, and a rear bumper right about there. And then you can draw your rear tire inside of that murky shadow with a circle inside of a circle, and there's your sketch. So the last thing we need to add is our Christmas tree. I'm going to have it coming just in front of the windshield right about here. Okay, and you can just draw a rough triangle shape, like it's just tipped over on top of the car, like this. And then go ahead and erase the top line of the car. You want it to look like the shape of the tree is overlapping the top a little bit, so you can do these zigzaggy marks showing the texture of the evergreen. And then for a rope, attaching it to the car, I'm just going to do a rope that comes right over to the front window, to the driver's side window, like that. We'll paint that with red, so it almost looks like a candy cane rope. And then we'll put the tree trunk right there. And that's it for the sketch. We are ready to start painting. Really quick, if you're enjoying this seasonal watercolor tutorial, there are so many more tutorials just like this one in my Watercolor Mastery membership. Included in the membership are the very popular daily challenges, which are released every single weekday for an entire calendar year. These tutorials feature a huge range of subject matter, including seasonal tutorials like this one. And if you're just starting out, it includes the 30 Days to Watercolor Beginners course, which will take you through all the basics of watercolor so that you can get started painting confidently right away. I'll leave a link in the description so you can check that out. All right, let's get back to the video. With any watercolor painting, you want to plan ahead for your whites. So, like I said, this line here is going to be a highlight, so I'm going to watch out for that. There's also another highlight right here. So it's helpful to sketch those bright points in so you can watch out for them with your paint later on. We're going to begin with Scarlet Lake, a light wash of this, and this will represent the more brightly lit areas of the car. But we're going to use this to cover pretty much all the car except for the brightest highlights. So take a milky consistency of your bright red, and you can just go ahead and paint it all over the car except for those highlights. So here's one right here. I want to carefully paint around that. And to keep a smooth consistency, you want to try to work quickly so that you're pulling the paint along, creating a nice flat wash without any blotches or stopping points. Whenever you stop, as you're working on a flat wash, it starts to dry, the edge of it starts to dry, and that can create an overlap as you continue to paint, which gives it this uneven look. So we're trying to avoid that by just moving right along, working quickly, and pulling the paint along before it has a chance to dry like that. I'm going to use slightly thicker paint right under the window right here, just dipping directly into my palette and along the top of the car. If you can save yourself a step and you know that it's going to be this color and value, you don't have to work in layers. You can just go right in. Here, I want to create the look of the tree overlapping the red roof of the car. So just a little bit of texture there where the tree is overlapping. And then let's grab some more watery paint and just keep going. The door right there was a good stopping point, but I gotta keep going so it doesn't form that hard edge we just talked about. And then I want to highlight on this side as well. So negative painting around some bright spots in the red. watching out for that little strip of light. And then for this part, just fill that all in with your milky red. Keep going. We're just going to watch out now for the rear window and this highlight surrounding the passenger window right here. So it's a nice curved, almost parenthesis shape right there. And coming around under that rear view window, painting around your lights, license plate, and bumper. And there's our first layer. All right, I'm just going to do a quick swipe over this to help blend out that edge that was beginning to form. And while that's drying, we'll come back and do some brighter reds over the top of that. While that's drying, let's go ahead and paint the tree. So for green, we're going to take Hansa Yellow Light. We'll start with that on the palette. And we'll use our indigo, mix a little of that with the yellow, and that creates a nice earthy evergreen color. And just using the tip of your brush, if you're right-handed like me, it makes it quite simple to just kind of pull up and away, feathering your brush up and down and curved in the shape of these pine boughs, and try to paint around some little gaps. So it almost looks like there's maybe some snow in the tree, like it was just cut down in the forest, still has some snow on it. And just keep moving with that motion. Keep it loose and expressive. Big, bold brush strokes. The tip of your brush really does most of the work for you here. But leave those little gaps. It looks much more painterly and brushy when you do. Then, while that's still wet, grab some pure indigo and drop that in, especially towards the bottom, wet into wet. And just dot it in a few locations so that it looks like there's some shadows in between those pine boughs. And it's creating more of a three-dimensional effect within the tree. Don't go overboard with this, just a little bit like that. Now, how do we make brown? We don't have brown here. Well, we can use our red and the green that we mixed up earlier. Or if you need to grab a little more of your indigo, you can. A little hint of yellow. You can make brown using all three of your primary colors. And so we'll use that to paint a trunk. Just a little dollop of paint right there. And that's all it needs. And then lastly, to finish our tree, we just need some more Scarlet Lake. And we'll paint a candy cane effect on that rope. A couple little dashes of red, alternating with the white of the paper. All right, once your car is dry enough, we can add a second wash over the top. This time we're going to be using our brightest, creamiest red to paint the darkest red in the car. Again, avoiding your highlights. So starting at the front of the car, we're going in with creamy red. And we want to leave some of that initial layer still shining through, so don't cover up everything. Leave a little of your highlights brilliantly shining. Keep your brush strokes loose and painterly. And then I want to take this color all the way across the side of the car. So just watching out for a little gap next to that panel. I'm just going to swipe it all the way to the other panel near the rear tire. And then I'm going to rinse and remove and gently soften that edge by swiping along it. And then we'll just keep going, wrapping our red around the curved shape of this rear tire, but still leaving a little bit of a highlight. This is how you create the look of three dimensions. You have a highlight, a shadow, and a midtone, and right now we're painting basically the shadow within the red, the darkest red that we see on the car. And that comes to the back here, leaving a little bit of that lighter red shining through again. If you want to soften any of your edges in the front, you can, just like we did on the side panel of the car. And that's it for our red. So now we get to do the dark details, and this is going to really help it look three-dimensional. So rinse the red all the way out. We'll start with the front tire right here. If it's still really wet, don't do anything that touches the red just yet. So let's swap out our water. I'm going to take ultramarine blue now and bring in some of that brown that I mixed up earlier, helping make more of a neutral gray. And I'll just fill in the hubcap, not all the way, leaving some highlights, some of the white of the paper showing through again. Loosely painting, no details. Very loose and expressive at this point. There's still a lot of wet red paint surrounding the windows here, so I need to be careful, but I think close to this front one, I can get away with some color. I want it to look like there's glass, so I'll leave some of the white of the paper showing through still. But we'll just go ahead and do a couple of vertical strokes there within the window using this murky blue. And same with this one. Try not to go too dark here. I'm going to do a little bit of a darker value at the back, so it almost looks like there's maybe some seats back there. We can't really tell. We don't know exactly what's going on. It's just some murky shapes. And wet on wet, you can drop in some darker values within that if you wish. Yeah, so that's it for the windows. Wasn't that fun? Let's take that simple little bit of indigo that's still on the brush and paint the rear window, and a little bit of indigo and ultramarine for the bumper. Now paint around some highlights here. You want it to look like shiny metallic chrome metal, so we'll do a line under and over, and then just fill in a little bit of that. So there's some shiny highlights within that. And then same for the license plate, just little hints, tiny brush strokes suggesting at those details. And we can come back to the front and do the same thing. Hint of your two blues, adding this little light in the front and the front bumper. Trying to leave a highlight in the middle so it does look metallic and chrome. All right, so if you have any areas that are dry enough for the tires, you can start that. Mine are still a little glossy here, so I need to watch out for that. Instead, I'll go ahead and add a color underneath the car. I'm thinking ultramarine blue to suggest that snowfall on the ground. So let's just take a swipe of color under the car. We'll leave a little gap in the undercarriage, but just right over the dry paper. That's pretty much all it needs. If you want to darken that up, you can use a little bit of indigo, particularly right under the car. Okay, so now our final details involve our darkest value, so we'll use our indigo paint to paint the tires. Just work your way around those hubcaps. Again, another friendly, gentle reminder, it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Loose and painterly looks beautiful. We'll go as dark as we can right under that rim of red. And then I want to leave just some little suggestions of highlights on the tires. Something like that. And then we'll carry that dark color all the way under the undercarriage of the car. Might leave a shiny highlight there as well. So using sort of these dashed motions with my brush actually looks better, I think, than painting a straight, complete line. If you want it to look more painterly, just use dashed motions, incomplete, not totally connected lines. Like that. And then lastly, let's finish this final tire. And we're going to be bringing the Christmas spirit with this fun little illustration. So again, really thick, creamy indigo. If you want your paint to be darker, pull it directly from your palette with just a teeny dab of water to get it flowing. That's all it needs. And then encircle your hubcap. complete the shape of the tire. Rinse and remove a tiny bit for a slightly lighter value. And then fill that all in. You can leave a couple little gaps or highlights if you wish. I'm realizing I need to tighten this one up so it matches the other one a little better. Yeah, there we go. There's our finished Christmas punch buggy. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for painting with me today.